The Rangers Supporters Trust joins us now live tonight on Sky Sports News. Stephen, good evening.
Good evening, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I asked Stuart Regan of the SFA for his reaction. He gave me it. What's your reaction tonight, Stephen?
We're extremely disappointed and very concerned at the integrity of UEFA's own judicial processes. And we're very, very concerned that an organised group of fans of another football club appear to be able to manipulate another organisation and to put our club in the dock. It's very, very worrying.
Well, Martin Bain tonight, the Rangers chief executive, he has reacted furiously to this, saying UEFA have ignored reports from their own officials in favour of a report from the group Football Against Racism in Europe. Is he right to react like that?
I think he's exactly right to react like that. What is the point in UEFA having an official observer at a game whose specific remit is to investigate what happens at the game if they're going to completely ignore that report and listen to an organisation which picks and chooses its own battles? I should tell you, Jim, that our organisation has twice written to kick it out, which is the British arm of FAIR, in March, following the game at Celtic Park in terms of racial abuse. It was aimed at one of the Rangers players, El Hadj Diouf. We raised the issue. We sent a YouTube clip with the you can hear Diouf clearly being racially abused. And we also raised the issue of the conviction at the weekend of a fan at that same game for racially abusing that player and asked them to intervene and to comment on it. And so far we haven't even had that correspondence acknowledged, never mind dealt with, and they certainly haven't been anywhere near us. I would want to ask, as a fan's representative, why a fans group hasn't been anywhere near any part of the Rangers support to discuss any of this in advance of going to UEFA and grandstanding. We want to know why that hasn't happened.
All right, let me ask you about the second match briefly, Stephen. This was the game at Ibrox against PSV Eindhoven. Was there sectarian chanting from a section of Rangers fans? You were there, were you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could... you could go
were you there, Stephen?
Yeah, Jim, yeah. You can go over the tape of the game and you can go through every single song and every single word that's said. You know, what I'd ask you to consider here is that the Scottish police have recently been in touch with the football clubs with a whole list of songs and chants which are and aren't acceptable. And I'd yet to see that reach the light of day, because what they certainly haven't done is have any kind of public debate about that. There hasn't been any conversation about what's racist, what's sectarian, what's offensive. And if you actually look at the UEFA charges that relates to the previous game, it talks about, in a quote, offensive behaviour. The point I made earlier on was that I haven't been to a professional football match in my 40-odd years as a football fan and not heard offensive chanting and behaviour. Every single professional football game I've been to, it happens. So all we're looking for here is a degree of parity, is a degree of equality, and a degree of consistency, and for UEFA to follow their own procedures, and clearly they're not doing that.
I totally understand you, and you're right to look for that. But again, was there sectarian chanting at that match that night?
Well, I'm sure you can find people who will say that there was sectarian chanting.
So there was?
And
there was an element of it, was there?
Yeah, Jim, I mean, it would be foolish to deny that. And there is a section of Rangers support that does involve itself in this kind of behaviour.
Sure. You know, so at the end of the day, Stephen, you and your position within the Rangers Supporters Trust want that stamped out, don't you?
Jim, we condemn that utterly and without equivocation. There's absolutely no doubt about it. There's no place for it in the game. And if people want to express a political viewpoint, then they can express it. But I don't want them to do so in a way that damages my football club.
So what's it going to take, Stephen, to have it stamped out?
Well, I'll tell you what it is going to take. It's going to take a conversation involving the people who are actually involved here, because what's happened so far is that with the politicians, chief executives, senior police officers and what have you putting their heads together going, what can be done? Well, I would suggest one of the first things that's done is that you actually talk to the organisations like mine and like the Rangers Supporters Assembly and the Association and their equivalents in other football clubs, and talk to the fans about a solution that works, because self-policing is what will work here. You know, educating and not kind of finger-wagging and the kind of stuff that we're talking about this evening. That's not going to help anyone. That sets back the position of people like myself who are actually trying to improve the position and tackle racism and sectarian. It makes our position very, very difficult when we have people intervening who have a political and a sectarian